attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. I come on here on Mondays to Fridays, anywhere between 12 and 1 to talk about immigration topics. And I'm here again to talk about a really good one, which is preparing for the green card interview. If you are on the path to permanent residence, chances are it's going to involve an interview, and you want to make sure you prepare for it, avoid those pitfalls during the interview. And preparing is going to be key to avoid unnecessary delays and unnecessary denials in your case. So I'm going to jump on that. But first, I want to just remind you that I'm also here to answer your US immigration related questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments, and I will go ahead and address your questions as soon as I'm finished with the topic that I came to talk about. Now, remember, this is not legal advice, but this is general information that's meant to educate you and empower you while you're considering maybe taking steps in the immigration process, or if you're in a rut, you're trying to figure out how to get out of the situation so that you can break through and get your permanent residence in the United States. So let's talk about the green card interview. The green card interview can take place in two places, right? Two main places in the United States, usually at a USCIS office, or even in an immigration court, by the way, but that's a different matter. We're going to focus on the USCIS interview. And then there's the US Embassy in the foreign country. So if you are applying and you're outside of the United States, you're going to be going to the interview at the embassy. If you're in the United States, you're probably going to be scheduled for your interview at the USCIS field office that's closest to where you're living, or closest to the address that they have on file. Now, what you take with you to the interview is going to depend on the type of petition, because a lot of it is evidence-based, and the evidence is going to depend on, are you applying through an employer? Are you applying based on your own credentials? Are you applying based on marriage or through family? Are you applying based on being the victim of a crime? So you already got the T visa or you got the U visa. Are you applying as an asylee who's now adjusting status? So just based on this, as you can see, there are many different ways to get permanent residence. And some of those ways include being a VAWA, getting VAWA, getting the T, getting the U, and also through employment. Now, I'm going to keep it very general, but if you have any follow-up questions, go ahead and put those questions in the comments now, and I will be happy to just scroll through when I'm finished to address those questions. There are, there are certain steps that you can take no matter what type of green card interview you're attending. The first is that you want to prepare for the questions. The questions it's going to be related to your eligibility for the permanent residence. So it's usually they're going to go line by line. Some officers go line by line through your petition, through your application. If you're in the United States and you filed for adjustment of status, make sure you know the application. Make sure you know what you put in the application. Sometimes you may have an attorney, or you may have filled it out yourself. And you tend to fill it out and send it in and then forget about it. At the time that you're preparing, you should always retain everything that you sent to the USCIS. We do that. We make sure that we retain every single piece of paper so we can go over it with our clients when that time comes. So make sure you know all your information that's in the application. One thing that they focus on is address history and marital history as well as employment history. No matter if you're applying for an employment base, but probably especially if you're applying for employment based, but they also ask these questions in family based as well, because there's reasons why they're focusing on these, because what whether the answer can even cause you to go through a denial, or it can push you through, right? Let me give you an example. If you're not supposed to be working without a permit here, and then you go you're applying for adjustment of status, and you go in and employment history is there, the officer is going to review it to see if were you in violation of that rule that you're not supposed to work without a permit. And if you are, then that means that you may not qualify for adjustment of status, and so the officer will look at that because it affects your eligibility. With marriage based, they're going to look at your marital history and make sure that your previous marriages were terminated before you are in the current marriage. Because if the previous marriages weren't terminated, that means that you don't qualify to apply for permanent residence, because the current marriage isn't valid. So you want to just sift through your details, make sure you're very clear on what's in your application so you're prepared for those questions. When it comes to employment, they're going to focus on your qualifications for the what. So, for example, if you're applying for the national interest waiver, they're going to focus on your qualifications and all the evidence that you submitted, and what makes your qualifications makes you fit within the criteria to get a permanent residence based on your advanced degree or based on your exceptional ability. So make sure that if you have any new evidence, if you have any new credentials, um, if you have anything that will, strengthen your application, or make sure that you push the officer in the right direction, make sure you take that. So that's leading me into new evidence. So while you applied, and then you obtained updated evidence, updated information that you should take with you. And even though I hate this, but if you have forgotten anything in the previous application, that's the time that you're going to take it. You're going to want to take that information when you know that it's missing, so that if the officer asks for it at the interview, it's there and the officer can process it right there on the spot and make a decision without further delaying your application. Um, and this applies whether you're doing this in the United States or outside of the United States. When you're doing it outside of the United States, it's a little more nerve-wracking, just because if you miss one thing, it could mean months and months and months of delays. One mistake can lead to 3 months delay, and I'm dead serious here. One mistake. Now, what happens is when you're working towards the interview, you have to first make sure that you submit all the required documents to the National Visa Center. Um, once you have once all of that is complete and you're documentarily qualified, to those of you who are at that step, you need to open up your ears. At that point, even if you haven't been scheduled for the interview, you now needs to start making sure that you have everything that you need to attend the interview. At the embassy, what I find are the biggest pitfalls is forgetting to take your original or certified documents. Original or certified documents will include, for example, your birth certificate, your spouse's birth certificate, your marriage certificate, your original or your certified copy. If you don't have those, then guess what? It could lead to a delay of 3 months or more, because what the officer will say at the interview is that they're unable to give you the visa until you can provide those documents. They will sometimes, and embassies are different on the way that they do this. Some of them may have a Dropbox, some of them may have a special email that you could send these documents. But if it's originals, you probably need to mail it in if they need to see an original. And so at this point, even once you've become documentarily qualified or even before, make sure that you get those documents. If you don't have your original marriage certificate, then now is the time to go ahead and order it. You have some weeks or some months to make sure that you have those documents ready and set to go to the interview. And then make sure that you take a copy and then you take the original with you. Now, the other pitfall at these interviews, so both in the United States and at the embassy, is that you will not carry your affidavit of support and the attachments, the evidence that has to go with the affidavit of support, which includes the basic, and I'm going to just list basic documents. It could be different just based on how the income looks for the petitioner or the sponsor. But the W-2 statement, 1099 statements, tax statements, and then the 1040 form, those are the basic tax forms. But if you own your own business, then you may require additional tax statements or tax documents based on the type of business that you own. And then you may need to also include evidence of assets. And assets usually come into play if the sponsor maybe has many assets, maybe not much income, or they don't meet the income requirements, but they have the assets. For example, they have a home with equity, or they have property with some equity in there, or they have valuable jewelry or valuable property that has some cushion in there to show that you can still to afford to support your immigrant relative. So those are some of the errors that I see really lead to a delay in your permanent residence, being issued permanent residence, and also just sometimes even facing denial. Now, a big one that you should not do, even if you think that something is going to go wrong, or that is going to affect your eligibility, you should never lie. If you lie in an interview, they can charge you with misrepresentation or fraud, and that leads to a lifetime bar from getting permanent residence. So then you have an even bigger problem. So if you are going to the interview, tell the truth no matter what. And the best way to deal with that is, if you feel like it's going to affect your eligibility, get in touch with me, schedule an appointment, and we can talk about what that issue is and prepare for the interview based on it. Sometimes there are waivers available that can help you to get forgiveness so that you don't get denied, or that shortly after the interview, you can still get an approval and it doesn't affect your eligibility. So in this case, ignorance may not always be bliss. You want to make sure that you know all the consequences associated with maybe your background or something that may affect your eligibility, and go ahead and prepare for those types of situations. All right. So that's what I have for you today. Now I'm going to go to questions. Hi there. Hi there on YouTube. Thanks for saying hello. Go ahead, put your questions in the comments now, because I'm going to answer some questions. All right. Okay, so I would like to know how long it takes to get help from an attorney to file the I-765 separately after a divorce. I would also like to know the cost to do so. My deadline is next year, March. So this is where the consultation is going to be very important, because remember, you can't just file a work permit. So the I-765 is the work permit. And you can't just file a work permit application So you said you're divorced, but what's going on in your situation that's going to qualify you for the work, the not only the work permit, but the work permit comes as a benefit if you qualify to apply for VAWA, qualify to apply for permanent residence. Then at that point, you are able to file a documentation along with the I-765 to be able to get the work permit. Those are taking anywhere from 6 to 12 months to get the work permit after you have properly filed. But this is where it's very important to make sure that you schedule a consultation to understand the process, what you qualify for, and your rights, because applying for a work permit alone is not what it's about. Now, the cost is going to depend on what your case looks like and what's involved. When I'm applying for an I-765 for my client, it means that they've hired me through their entire case, not just for the work permit, because it doesn't work like that, where you just apply for a work permit. All right, keep those questions coming. That was a good question, by the way. And this is where, talking to an immigration attorney, I'm here available to do that. It's going to be important because one mistake, especially when it comes on to VAWA, is that people just jump up, you file, you think it's just about submitting a VAWA, submitting the work permit, and it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more to it. And there's a lot of complex, I know in my law firm, there's a lot of you know, complexity to the inner workings. I have, even though I'm here talking to you today, I do have a team of people, and teams of people work on my clients' cases along with me because of the complexity of it. There are different aspects of the case that we need to address. And so it's not just about the I-765, but that is also a good benefit. The I-765 is a work permit, by the way. When a VAWA case gets approved, does it mean your interview for green card will automatically get approved? Not necessarily. It means that you likely will get your permanent resident interview, but now the question is, do you qualify for permanent residence? Because while you've gotten VAWA allows you to stay in the United States and to continue to renew that status and to get your work permit. There are some individuals that they qualify for VAWA, but they may be permanently barred because of maybe a past crime, maybe a past immigration violation. Maybe they need to apply for a waiver to get forgiveness before they get permanent residence. And the officer is going to look out for things like this. And this is where it's important to get representation through your entire process, because you can apply for VAWA if you've come into the country without permission, and if you've been arrested. There are ways to get forgiveness for it. If you have overstayed, then VAWA is still available to you. However, the way to approach getting the permanent residence is going to depend on what's your background and does it affect your eligibility. What if I'm married and my wife got pregnant for a man while getting paperwork together? That's a big deal. And if that occurred, whoever that occurred to, I'm sorry that happened. And that's definitely a sign that there's a bigger issue going on that could lead to your eligibility for VAWA, where you can apply on your own. Keep in mind that if you're currently in the middle of the process and something has happened that's detrimental, you are being mistreated, and certainly infidelity can be a form of mistreatment and abuse. It depends on the facts involved, but it can definitely be one of the things that's indicative of abuse or mistreatment, and certainly extreme cruelty. But this is very fact intensive, and we'd have to understand exactly what happened to be able to determine whether you qualify. But these are the kinds of things that occur that is certainly a sign that there's some qualification for VAWA. So what if a lesbian couple got married and 3 months later she's pregnant by someone else? So that goes to the original question, and so it can definitely be indicative of a problem in the marriage and extreme cruelty. But because the facts can be different in each case, I'd have to understand your situation, and this is where the consultation is going to be very important. But facts like these certainly open up the door for qualifications for VAWA. Hello, when can I expect to work perm or interview based on marriage with U.S. citizen? My application was received 8/23 and my biometrics was done 9/29. But since USCIS web, so case under review. So, you could be looking at 6 to 8 months on average. I have seen it come in less time. My record is 3 weeks, but you're looking at about 6 to 8 months, and it depends on a number of factors on the back end of the USCIS. So let's see, I saw an I-751. Let's see. Oh, so okay, so it's not the I-765. Okay, got it. That makes sense. So the I-751 is the removal of conditions. The cost is going to also depend on what's involved in your matter, and that's where the consultation is going to be very important. But there is the ability to apply based on divorce as long as the marriage was bona fide, and a lot of it is going to be focusing on the bona fides of the marriage. Yes, you're divorced, but they still want to see that it was real despite the divorce. I can definitely help you. It's something I work with my clients on. So get in touch. We'll talk about what's going on in your matter, and then we can get started. All right. Keep putting those questions in the comments. I'm here to answer your questions, and these are all great questions so far. So put those questions in the comments. All right, so I'm not seeing any more questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head out, but let me tell you how to get in touch with me. Go ahead, on the bottom of this on YouTube, you'll see the ticker going across with the phone number. Go ahead, call that number, and the scheduling coordinator will be able to help you. The office will be, at least the scheduling coordinators will be out from tomorrow right up until Sunday, and they'll be back on Monday. But the good news is our phone is open all through the holidays, so you can still call, get your place in line, and then you do have the ability to schedule your own appointment as well online. So if you go to the link in the profile, you'll still be able to schedule your own appointment online where you don't have to wait for a scheduling coordinator to help you. You can go straight to the link in the profile on Instagram, on Facebook, they're on the About page, and on YouTube on the About page. You will see the link. Go ahead, click on that link, schedule the appointment, and you will be set. Get your place in line so that we can handle your matter and get started as soon as possible. All right, that's going to be it for me. So have a good one. And if no matter where you are, I can assist you. I do represent clients in all 50 states and around the globe. So that should not be a problem. As long as you have that immigration issue, I can help you. All right, have a good one. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.